But HPD, how in the hell could she call 911, tell you all the problem, you all give us specific instructions, she followed those instructions, and you put her in jail? And then her sister show up who wasn't even on the scene to after the fact, and you put her in jail too for the same charge. Disgraceful. You talk about a level of incompetence and absolute neglect. How could you neglect to do your righteous duty as a law enforcement officer? Greetings, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the People's Global News Network. Greetings and welcome to another episode of the People's Global News Network, a network where we didn't come to lighten up, we come to tighten up. This network was designed to give the people a platform to speak the raw, unadulterated truth about their fight with the system. This program will give you facts, will give you stories that most want hidden. Welcome to the People's Global News Network, my sister.
Thank you.
Take us from the very top because you have a very interesting story about your father, a subsequent family that he had on in different circumstances from you and your sister and your brother. Tell us about your father, what kind of man that he was, and tell the people what happened when he passed.
He was a very giving man, very understanding. But close to the end, his wife passed away from dementia, and it's something else that she passed away. I'm not familiar with that. In 2022, uh, before her demise, they set aside something for us, me, my sister, and her granddaughter. And when he passed, the granddaughter tried to take everything. So her mother and her did will and power of attorney behind me and my sister's back. We didn't know anything about it until the VA called her the morning he went in to the VA. And that's when we found out about it. And power of attorney switched over to me because I'm the oldest because the VA didn't recognize it. And they did a will. They did a durable power of attorney. They took everything out of his house before a week before he passed. They didn't know where he was, what his condition was, if he was returning home or anything, because they didn't know where he was. Because the power of attorney went over to me, and I didn't involve him in any of his care or anything like that. Also, they didn't notify us when the will was probated. Everybody don't know to look on the website to see that. They didn't notify us. They didn't do anything.
So let me get this straight. You're saying that they were actually in a courtroom, a court of law, probating your father's estate, and you were not even notified?
At all.
And you had power of attorney.
No, they had.
They had power of attorney over your father.
Yeah, we didn't know about it until he got in the hospital.
And the VA, when they recognized, because he's a veteran,
Yes.
when they recognized that your father had now been taken over by someone else, they wouldn't recognize that, right?
They didn't recognize the durable power of attorney. It came over to me.
They went back to you.
Yes.
And they were still, after that, allowed to go into a court and probate the estate
Yes.
with you and your sibling, your sister, having no idea what the hell was going on?
Correct.
Wow. Keep going.
And now we're fighting. Oh, we went in my dad's house. Since the power of attorney went over to me, I needed medical stuff. On taking him to the doctor, they took his keys, all of his, only thing that was left was his shirt, his keys, his cell phone, his shoes, his pants, his hat, his jacket. They took it all. So we had no way of getting into my father's house. So my sister called the HPD and asked them what we can do. They say just hire a locksmith, and that's what we did. So upon going inside trying to retrieve that information, neighbor called the police. The neighbor called her. She came over with the police. And subsequently, me and my sister spent 24 hours in jail.
So you call 911 for help.
We called the police department for help.
And you have power of attorney.
No, we don't have power of attorney.
At that point, you didn't have it.
No, we didn't have any. The power of attorney, I'm going to say medical decision making came over to me.
So that's power of attorney.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
So you call 911. You explain the situation to the dispatcher. And they instruct you, call a locksmith. You call a locksmith. Locksmith comes, accommodates your sister's wishes, right?
Right.
Because I think you came a little bit later, right?
No, I came. I was there before she was there.
That's right. So you were there before she was there.
Yes.
But you follow what the dispatcher from 911 is telling you.
We follow what the HPD personnel said. We can go in now, as long as we do the locksmith, because we got to lock the door back. So that's what we did.
And your sister comes after this.
Yes.
She shows up later.
Yes.
People are already there.
Yes.
Already working.
Yes.
Police had showed up because she showed up with the cops.
She showed up when they showed up. Yes.
And your sister comes, and they put her in jail too.
Yeah, we were sitting. They wanted to get both our stories, so we just sitting on my dad's front porch just talking, and they go talk to her. And I told them they don't even know where my dad's at. Ask them where he's at. I say, here's where the paperwork on my phone. I can show you where I had to sign him into the facility, where the power, the medical decision making was turned over to me. He didn't want to look at that. He said, we only going by what we see. But as we're sitting there waiting for them, they go over there and talk to her. She takes out some paper out of some vanilla envelope and give it to them. Then she's on the phone with the DA. Next thing I know, we come up, we're being handcuffed, and we're going to jail for burglary of a habitat, so they say.
So they're charging you with burglary of a habitat, and they're the ones who told you to get the locksmith and get in the house.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ. Wow. You know, what else has this woman done?
Well, we found out that she tried to change whatever my dad wanted all three of us to have. She tried to change it from 40-30 to 30, but the bank doesn't do that, so it went 3 equal ways. She took everything out of his house. I'm going to say this. Everything she wanted out of his establishment a week before he passed. Wow. Without even knowing, was he going to come back home? Was he going to do anything? So you had a durable power of attorney, but you abused it. You took everything out of his home before it was even probated. The will was probated or anything.
Did she ever call and say your father's conditioning is worse
No.
than we're taking him to the VA hospital?
No. He went to the hospital at 1:30 at night. The VA called me the next day at 11:12 and asked me about my dad. And then that's when I was informed that he was in the hospital. I called her at 11:14.
And what happened?
And asked her why she didn't tell me that. Oh, Mama was going to call and tell you.
But the mama is suffering from dementia.
No, the mama is the deceased wife, daughter-in-law.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So why you didn't? She doesn't have dementia. I say, so why y'all didn't call me at 1:30 in the morning? Just because we work doesn't mean we can't stop and go see what about our father. It's been numerous occasions and I've told them about that.
So they had taken him to the hospital in the past before this last time.
He wants them, since the daughter-in-law knows their medical condition, she kept it up because she was handling their medical stuff because she used to be a nurse. Okay, we tried to intervene, like, let us take him to the doctor. He got upset because they filling his head with stuff. Just because of where we work, we can't take him to the doctor. He got angry, so I kind of like stepped away and let him continue to do that. We just call and check on him, go over there and spend time with him. Okay, Daddy, you need to go to the store. You need to do this.
So you were always actively involved with
Exactly.
It wasn't like you or your sibling or your sister abandoned your father.
No, not at all.
You were always engaging him and making sure he was straight and everything was good.
Yes.
But this time you had no idea that a power of attorney had been drawn up, whole new will had been put together, at least attempted to be put together, behind you and your sister's back.
Yes.
And you don't, it's like, so you're pretty much saying they took him to the hospital and left him for dead.
They just left him down there. I know they was calling to check on him, but I stopped that because what we found out after about the will and the power of attorney. So you left us out intentionally. You know he had two daughters. So if you was going to do a will to make sure nobody takes advantage of him, why we wasn't included in that process?
If you had something to say, if you could do it all over again, if your father was still alive, what would you do different?
I wouldn't want him to do a will necessarily or a power of attorney, but as seeing now, if I knew now what I know then, I probably would have had him do that. But they still would have did it behind our backs. I still think they would have
I
done
know
it.
they say
They could have,
hindsight is
yeah,
2020,
they could have had anything out the house they wanted. We didn't. I just wanted the sentimental things,
and you got nothing.
and I wanted his wife was cremated. I took care of that with him. I wanted to put her ashes in with him. I put my personal feelings aside and tried to do that. They said no.
Wow. If you could give advice to parents who are getting much older in life, they have more years behind them than in front of them, but they have children and they're remarried, and now there's stepchildren involved or step relatives involved. What would you advise those parents to do?
Get your affairs in order. Make sure you have everything on a dotted line. Who you want to have this, who you want to be the executor, who you leaving, whatever. Because as I'm finding out, once a person dies, is deceased, the vultures come out.
Mm.
They come out like you kicking ants. And I know somebody that's going through something that right now, just because somebody there, they're going to fight over the house, they're going to fight over this. Have your affairs in order. Who you want to take care of, put it in a will.
And let me say this to the people, be cognizant of this. A death in the family, especially if it's a matriarch or patriarch of the family, that type of death will bring out of everybody what's really in them. One thing about a death in the family, it either unites the family or separates the family. And I want to say to men and women, be very aware of the pain and the struggle and the depression that you will leave your children behind if you don't have a will. If you don't have a will, you're going to leave them to be at each other's throats, and the wounds that they will inflict on one another may never heal. She's correct. Put your affairs in order, because you cannot live a life where you've worked so hard. And I've seen this. Let me say this. The surviving relatives start fighting over the estate. It goes up into court. It hits probate court. The judge assigns lawyers to the probate court to represent the court and to represent the best interests. The lawyers take all the money. They eat up the entire estate. And before you know it, the children are left with nothing. Everything you worked so hard for and sacrificed for will go back to lawyers who are hired by the state in the name of a probate court. You can avoid all of that if you just leave a will and make sure everything is done legally and correct. We just heard Deion Sanders talking about that when he was going through this surgery for bladder cancer. And he said, I had to do a will. He said, and I hate to say this, I had to rank my children to decide who gets what. Mm-hmm. So please get your affairs in order. But HPD, how in the hell could she call 911, tell you all the problem, you all give us specific instructions, she followed those instructions, and you put her in jail? And then her sister show up who wasn't even on the scene to after the fact, and you put her in jail too for the same charge. Disgraceful. You talk about a level of incompetence and absolute neglect. How could you neglect to do your righteous duty as a law enforcement officer and violate her and her sister's civil rights? They followed your advice. We're going to deal with HPD. You're not going to be off the hook on this one, by no means. Tell me about your father. What kind of man was he?
He served in the Korean War, I found out, for 2 years. He was a corporal. He stayed to himself. He'll stay in one place for a long period of time. He was very giving, very kind man. He was always there. He was always there for me and my sister. And he was there for other people. And he took care of his wife until he couldn't take care of her no more, and he had to put her in a home. And I know that broke his heart.
And what was his name?
D.C. Sumlin.
D.C. Sumlin.
Mm-hmm.
One of them old school black man names. D.C. Sumlin.
Mm-hmm.
What's a valuable lesson you learned from your father? If you could repeat something that you watched him do in his life, what would it be?
Just be kind to people. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
And that's what D.C. Sumlin did.
Yes, he did.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you for telling us your story and your fight with your family and the price and the consequence of corruption with family wills, corruptions with power of attorneys. People can submit fake and fraudulent documentation to the courts. There was just a story on a week ago, and it talked about fake documents taking people's homes. I just saw another story where a woman, several women, took out a $400 or $500 loan from a loan bank, from a loan agency, a lending institution, and come to find out in the fine print they had signed over their homes if they couldn't pay the money back, and the interest rate was like 35 and 40% interest. And them being on a fixed income, they could never pay that back. Pay attention, brothers and sisters. Stay alert and stay focused. Parents, please leave a will. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you. We're going to update you about this HPD situation involving this case. Stay tuned for that.